A familiar situation. The handle has broken off your favorite mug, or your child has brought home a schoolcraft project that's falling apart. Your first instinct is to reach for super glue, moment adhesive, or PVA glue. 1 second, and it's fixed. Now imagine that it's not the 21st century with its abundance, but the mid-20th century in the USSR. There were few adhesives available, and their quality left much to be desired. What could you do? Give up? Soviet engineers and workers didn't think that way. This story tells of an industrial innovation that would surprise modern specialists and evoke nostalgia among people of that era. While history textbooks describe grandiose construction projects and achievements of Soviet industry, Korolev was preparing rockets for the stars. The BAM, Baikal-Amur mainline railway, was being built. It was difficult to find reliable glue in the country. A paradox, but a fact. An interesting question: how many types of truly universal and reliable industrial adhesive were there in the USSR in the mid-century before the mass appearance of PVA? The answer may surprise you. Very few. What was available in the arsenal? Silicate office glue, transparent, somewhat thick, which warped paper. It wasn't suitable for serious tasks. Casein glue, based on milk protein, not bad, but it feared moisture. Paste made from flour or starch, suitable only for children's craft projects. And the famous PVA? It appeared in the USSR only in the late 1950s. The license for its production was acquired from the American company DuPont in 1959. Before that moment, such a universal helper was only a dream. The country needed its own universal and reliable adhesive. Enter BF glue, butyralphenolic, and its creator, Professor Grigory Semenovich Petrov, a talented specialist in the field of chemistry. It was 1942. The Germans were advancing on Moscow, and the country was experiencing difficult times. Petrov worked in an evacuated research institute in the Urals, in a hastily converted workshop of a former brewery. Under wartime conditions, with shortages of resources and equipment, he faced a complex task: to create an adhesive that could serve industry and even medicine. Petrov worked practically without modern analytical instruments and computer modeling, only experience, knowledge, and a chemist's intuition. He tested his first samples on fragments of shot-down aircraft. There was sufficient suitable material for experiments. As a result, Petrov developed an entire line of adhesives: BF2 for metals and hard plastics, BF4, more elastic, for wood and materials subject to bending, and BF6. In 1950, Professor Lev Grigorievich Shkolnikov proposed using BF6 in medicine. The yellowish glue in small tubes replaced iodine in brilliant green, sealing minor wounds and creating a protective film. Other modifications also existed: BF19 for especially critical joints, and the special development BF88 for aviation, which could withstand the overloads of jet fighters and sharp temperature changes at altitude. For his development, Grigory Petrov received the Stalin Prize in 1946. The quality of the glue was indeed high. According to some data, when samples of Soviet BF2 reached an American laboratory of the 3M company for analysis in 1961, the results showed that the bond strength exceeded their best developments by 2 to 3 times. There are also reports that in 1963, 3M offered the USSR a significant sum for the complete formula and production technology of BF, but the USSR refused the deal. The French company Rhodia Seta allegedly attempted to acquire a batch of Soviet technical solvent for analysis through intermediaries, but could not reproduce the formula with the same quality. How did BF differ from Western analogs? The secret lay in a special synthesis technology for polyvinyl butyryl. Soviet chemists found a way to create longer and more stable polymer chains. If Western analogs broke down under load, BF maintained elasticity, supporting the bond. Another advantage was the alcohol base. While American manufacturers used expensive organic solvents like toluene and xylene, the Soviet glue was created based on ethyl alcohol. This was not only cheaper but also provided better penetration into material pores. However, there was a serious problem. BF glue quickly thickened upon contact with air. To increase shelf life, manufacturers began diluting it, sometimes in proportions of 1 to 3 or even 1 to 4. Such diluted glue held poorly, spread out, required long drying time, and didn't provide proper strength. Under these conditions, an unofficial solution to the problem emerged. Workers discovered that if ordinary table salt was added to liquid glue and thoroughly mixed, an interesting chemical reaction occurred. The process looked like this. Approximately 100 grams of table salt were poured into a standard jar of BF glue. Then, using a drilling machine with a homemade mixer, often made from a bent rod, mixing began at low speed. The salt acted as a coagulant, salting out the adhesive base from the solution. The liquid separated, and a thick, viscous concentrate, the true essence of the glue, collected on the mixer. This improved glue needed to be used quickly, but it provided significantly stronger bonding. An interesting feature of this process was the byproduct. The separated liquid fraction contained ethyl alcohol, which served as the base for diluting BF glue. This cloudy liquid, with a characteristic smell, received the folk name Boris Fedorovich, from the first letters of BF glue, and in some workshops, Frontline Veterans Balm, or BFITCH. Despite the fact that this liquid contained residues of formaldehyde and other chemical compounds, under the conditions of that time, it was sometimes consumed as an alcoholic beverage. There was even an informal gradation. BFITCH from BF2 was considered the strongest, from BF4 milder, and from medical BF6 the most gentle. This phenomenon reflected both the ingenuity of people of that time and the specific conditions of life and work in the USSR. Management naturally knew about such improvements of standard glue by workers. Formally, this was a violation of technology and damage to state material. Sometimes they could receive a reprimand for this, especially if caught by a strict inspector. But most often they turned a blind eye to it, since such improved glue was indeed stronger and better at bonding parts, which positively affected product quality and plan fulfillment. The story of BF glue shows how, under conditions of limited resources and technological difficulties, people found creative solutions to problems. This is an example of how necessity stimulates innovation, a phenomenon characteristic not only of the USSR but of any country under difficult conditions. This story demonstrates both the achievements of Soviet chemistry and the problems of the production system of that time. BF was indeed a quality product, but problems with its commercial production and distribution forced people to seek their own solutions. Similar examples of folk ingenuity occurred in different countries and at different times, when official solutions did not fully satisfy practical needs. If you enjoyed this historical investigation and learned something new, please give it a like. It's the best reward for my efforts. Do you know of any other similar people's technologies that existed in the USSR? Or perhaps your fathers or grandfathers had their own trade secrets at work? I'm looking forward to your thoughts and stories in the comments. I'm very excited to read them. And of course, subscribe to the channel and our Telegram channel so you don't miss other fascinating stories about Soviet ingenuity and beyond. There's plenty more interesting content to come.